Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to talk the best and worst armies for playing Age of Sigmar in Gallet. Now, for those who don't know what Gallet is the current season of Warhammer Age of Sigmar match play that we're playing in, and we're going to talk about some reasons why I think these are the best and the worst armies currently for getting into the game. Now, there will be a bunch of reasons. We'll not only look at performance on the table and how they interact with the rules in Gallet, but also worth considering, how easy an army is to put together. Actually, does this army have simple builds that are effective within it, and generally can it be painted pretty easily as well? We're going to look at this from a beginner's perspective, so 5 best and worst armies for playing Age of Sigmar in Gallet, how easy they are to play, how easy they are to achieve results with, and how good those results can be. And so, number 1 in our best, we have Nighthaunt. Now, first of all, they have an excellent ability to play around with what is and isn't Galatian veterans in their army. This means picking particular sub-factions. You can make certain units your battle line, you can make certain units not your battle line in particular other sub-factions and other builds with different leaders and such. This really helps when you're going to want to make some of your units potentially bounty hunters, and not having those bounty hunters also be Galatian veterans is definitely something you want to try and do. On top of this, you actually have some cool survivable blobs of troops that can make for great Galatian veterans. Generally, the key is to avoid Galatian veterans unless you've got a way of keeping them alive, and Nighthaunt definitely have some Galatian veteran options that can keep themselves alive on the table really well. You've got strong protection as well against mortal wounds and shooting, thanks to some models rules like your spirit host, able to protect your what otherwise would be quite flimsy heroes. And also on top of that, this army is super easy to paint, and if you can find some old collections of Soul Wars and stuff like that and Mortal Realms magazines, you can get a really cheap army as well. Number 2, the Seraphina. Now, once again, they've got excellent ability to play around with what is and what isn't Galatian veterans. This is really cool. Like, they have the ability to make units that are not infantry as their battle line, meaning you can play with no Galatian veterans as well, but you've also got some ways to get some really interesting bounty hunter units inside the army. Coalesce Seraphina getting those extra attack on all the jaws really does mean something when you have something like a Saurus cavalry model that's got both the mount and the rider getting extra attacks from the jaws, which can end up putting them at quite a few attacks. When you start adding up all that little splash damage coming out of those stuff, it can be quite nasty. You've got a large range of models as well, and this has just served Seraphina really well throughout the time since they've got their first proper battle tome in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. They can just roll with the punches. No matter what gets nerfed, there's always something else in Seraphina that is there to stand strong. The army can continuously been good so far since we've seen the changes to 3.0, and it will continue to be good, I think, for quite a while after, if it's just got a nice range. They're relatively easy to paint as well, with the scales and stuff coming up really nicely with things like contrast and speed paints from Army Painter. And you've also got, some super fun and pretty decent armies as well that are great for beginners, like Monster Mash armies coming out of Thunder Lizards and stuff like that. Number 3 on the best, Silvernath. And once again, they have excellent ability to play around with what is and isn't Galatian veterans unit. You can see this as a theme. The ability to do this in an army is just super, super important. Now, they have this ability, like the other forces, where they can do it with taking different heroes, taking different sub-factions, allowing you to sort of mix and match. A cool thing with Silvernath is, while there definitely aren't some more technical builds and playstyles within the army, you do have great basic playstyle ways to start with. Things like playing the All Tree Lord army, or something very heavy with Kurnoth Hunters as a very main focus force. Can definitely be some more simple ways to play your Silvernath, and you can move into much more tricksy and much more technical ways to play as you gain knowledge with the army. I think this is definitely something Silvernath has really sort of helped itself. It's got an easy in playstyle, but it's also got, the ability to level up your playstyle while playing them. Once again, they are super simple to paint. Trees take things like contrast and dry brushing techniques really well, and almost every army in the units in the book is pretty good, has a viable place to be in some way in the army, which is what you want. You want to be able to take any unit in the army and play it on the table and have it be doing at least okay. Next up, we have the Maggie of Nurgle. Now, same again, excellent ability to play around with what is and what isn't Galatian veterans in this army. Now, you do have a couple of units that will always be Galatian veterans, but both of them can be done in really nice, super tanky ways. I think both the main battle line units in Plague Bearers and Putrid Blight Kings can be really solid Galatian veterans, especially Blight Kings. They've got a really decent armor save, got a decent amount of wounds in them, and they can also pack a punch back. This actually makes them really great Galatian veterans that also can function as bounty hunters. This is something that is not very common, a unit that can do both sides of the coin well. Putrid Blight Kings are definitely one of those units. On top of that though, you've actually got better options for your bounty hunters as well in things like Puskul Blight Lords, which can work really nice as bounty hunter options. There's loads of different builds within the Maggie of Nurgle army, playing a whole host of different heroes, units and stuff besides. And the army is pretty easy to paint. Things like Agrak's Earthshade and Nurgle's Rot and a lot of the technical paints can go a long way to helping get this army get the nice grimy, dirty effect you want on it really easily. And number 5 in our best Beasts of Chaos. I never thought I'd say this. Once again, excellent ability to play around with what is and isn't a Galatian veteran unit. Like I said, this is the common theme. The ability to do this is really important. But they've also got some great models to work as their battle line options. Things like Dragon Ogres are really fantastic as battle line. They don't become Galatian veterans, but you've also, like the Putrid Blight Kings before, got things like Bullgords, which are actually really great Galatian veteran options if you've got a Doomball as your general, but also can be great bounty hunters as well. You've got so many models as well, it really doesn't matter that your models die like flies. You've also got the ability where your random monsters on the table no longer give up bonus points to your opponents for existing. This is a really good thing for Beasts of Chaos, as so many of them now have some unlocked potential, I think, in the army. The army is really easy to paint, lots of fur, lots of scales, and lots of dirty effects can go a long way. They're really quite a fun army to paint, and on top of that, you've got so much rend. The Hearthstone is such a good terrain piece, I'd almost say the best terrain piece in the game. Protect it at all costs and watch your opponent weep as you just ignore their armor saves with amazing rend -8. Alrighty, and so looking at the worst armies to get into. Now, before we get into this, I want to talk a little bit about what I mean by the worst. You can certainly, with a lot of practice and good playing skills, win with any of these armies. None of these armies particularly are unwinnable with, but they are definitely not in as good a position as the ones we mentioned, or indeed the ones we even don't mention in this video. So for starters, the Flesh Eater Cores. For me, they just don't have many survivable options and generally low armor. This doesn't make for great Galatian veteran units and really does hurt some of their battle line options because, you know, nearly you're either going to have to take Galatian veterans that are very flimsy and you're not having options to really get out of taking flimsy Galatian veterans on the table. You can make them also bounty hunters, but once again, this sort of defeats the purpose as you're going to, you know, get hit by other bounty hunters and you're having to sort of pull double duty here. You're generally quite points heavy for a couple of your glass cannon damage dealers. Some of your big pieces definitely do a lot of damage. Terrorgeist is an absolutely frightening piece when it hits your lines, but they can be quite swinging and they can be quite big glass cannons. With the new edition, Flesh Eater Cores have always struggled with the fact they can't sort of stack a lot of their buffs, which was very key to some of their earlier power in previous editions. Next up in the bad category, we have the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. For me, a big thing that the Ossiarch Bone Reapers have struggled with in Age of Sigmar 3rd edition is identity. With their relentless discipline ability pretty much becoming the normal way that command abilities work game-wide now, I feel they've lost a little bit of what made them special. Yes, relentless discipline still has its own unique sort of twist on it, but it's not quite the special ability it once was in the previous edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Alongside that, the army had a ability to be rather quite defensive with things like Mortek Guard. Mortek Guard have lost a lot of that, with Petrifex Elite having been changed time and time again, and it constantly not being what it once was originally with the +1 armor save. For me, now, with the addition of Bounty Hunters, this sort of defensive ability that the Ossiarch Bone Reapers once had really doesn't stand up in the current meta. Next, we have the Crawl Boys. For me, the only army I would say in the modern 3.0 books that I don't think suits the current edition well. The Crawl Boys definitely do suffer from two main things for me. The first being a massive lack of options. I think if you really are keen on Crawl Boys, go play them in Big War and mix in some Bone Splitters and Iron Jaws in there along with them. For me, it's just those lack of options. They've got one main battle line unit in Gut Rippers. They can, of course, now get the Hobgrot Slitters. For every unit of Gut Rippers you take, you get a Hobgrot Slitters as battle line, which is certainly something and definitely a move in the right direction, though Gut Rippers probably still are too expensive points-wise for my liking. And you've then got the Bolt Boys available to be a battle line in one particular sub-faction as well. Now, a big issue with Bolt Boys as well. They are a great shooting unit, no doubt, and do well against armies that don't shoot them back. However, as soon as they are outranged, they really do suffer due to having a low armor save. They really get taken apart by other shooting armies, and thus they're a shooting army that is weak to other shooting armies. Now, next I want to talk about Ogremore Tribes, and I will say this to begin with, this army is an absolute joy to paint and play on the tabletop. It plays Warhammer in a very simple manner, but therein lies its negativity. For everything that it does good, it is an army that has a ceiling that is relatively low, while having a really low floor as well, which is great for getting into the game initially, though as you do progress, you will find you probably need to find an army, something else besides Ogremore Tribes to continue on your Warhammer journey. Now, they do have some units that definitely do pack a punch in the Beastclaw Raider part of the army. Those units generally are a little bit overcosted in them, but they do pack a decent punch and can do rather well. The Gutbusters half of the army really does suffer with the addition of Galatian veterans, as Iron Guts, Leadbelchers and Ogre Gluttons all really don't want to be Galatian veterans, as a big thing for them surviving was their wound density. They had a lot of wounds, they had a lot of meat on the table. It wasn't that they had good armor saves or ward saves besides, it was that there was wounds in the unit. And now with the additional damage coming out of Bounty Hunters and damage increasing across the game anyway, they definitely are suffering. And lastly, for number 5, we have the Gloomspite Gits. Now, a big issue I've always said with Gloomspite Gits, as someone who plays them quite a lot, is the similarity in their debuffs. In previous editions, especially when they came out, their big thing was stacking minuses to hit. However, that's no longer a thing in Age of Sigmar 3rd edition, and it still hasn't been fixed yet. Though, you know, there is hope that there is a new Gloomspite Gits book on the horizon, and we saw some really positive changes with the Loon Shrine in the latest FAQ, so there is hope for Gloomspite in the future. Terrible units for Galatian veterans. Stabbers, shooters are things that you should never want to be Galatian veterans, and Squig Herd are actually a unit you want to die, thus make a terrible Galatian veterans unit. They have okay bounty hunters in their Boingrot Bounders, but Troggoths for me just lack a few attacks. With only 2 attacks coming out of a Rot Gut each, they really can be rather swingy. Like I said though, it's all about that new book. It can really make or break the army. They're fantastically fun to paint, though they can be challenging on some of the more, I guess, out there models in the range, but generally Hordes of Grots go together really easily. What are your thoughts on what's great and what's not in the new edition? Leave us your comments down below. Let us know what you think. This is all great information, and different opinions here are great for new players to digest and discover. That's the end of the video, everyone. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, drop us a comment down below in the comment section and let us know what you enjoyed about the video and what you'd like to see more of on the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here we have at Sinful Gaming, you can do so on our Discord server, which is linked in the video's description. Also linked in the video's description is our Patreon and YouTube members, where you can go to help support the channel and allow us to keep doing what we're doing. As a special thank you to our Patreons and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out. So thank you to our Patreons: Christian Weir, Soren, Greenskins Gaming, Kenny Lauer, Outer Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Anthony B, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Derek, and Giappy390, and to our YouTube members: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Ronya, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Revenar, Pink Nico Fire, Robin Mankiller, and Monty's Tabletop Terrain. And lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork you see on the channel. Thank you all for watching. Once again, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now, everyone.